For the next 2 or 3 weeks, I plan to return to the daily lectionary, which, by the way, you can access at one of these websites, and I plan to work through the epistle readings for each day. Today's reading comes from 1 John, the end of chapter 3 and the beginning of chapter 4. By a quirk of the liturgical calendar, the readings for the first half of 1 John simply aren't included in this year's lectionary readings, and that's why I'm starting in the middle of the letter. Let's be about it then, shall we? Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional from Monday, May 20th, 2024. There's ongoing scholarly debate about the relationship between the Gospel of John, the 3 letters of John, and Revelation, or as it goes by its full name, the Revelation to John. Same writer or different writers? Well, it's really hard to know. These 5 books of the New Testament, though, share enough vocabulary and feel that it is certainly no stretch to say that they at least all came from one community. Perhaps a community started by one of the New Testament figures named John. The letters of 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John all bear striking resemblance to one another. The same themes are present in all 3 letters. The primary concern in each one has to do with the love of Christians for one another, especially as they share in their enmity toward the world. All 3 share a perspective not universally shared by other New Testament writers, namely that those inside the church constitute the children of light, while all of those outside the church are by definition children of darkness. You can see there is a deep distrust of the non-Christian world here. The 20th century American theologian H. Richard Niebuhr, whom I often quote, lifts these letters up as representing one impulse within the history of Christianity, an impulse he calls Christ against culture. The upshot of all this is that when John talks about the importance of loving one another, he's not talking about love for humanity in general, but rather love within the community of the church. It is important to keep this in mind when we read and interpret the letters of John. If we do want to call on the church to love those outside the church, we have to appeal to other sources than these. And there are plenty of other sources that we can appeal to. But for this John, the love he talks about is the mutual love only for believers for one another. No wonder today's reading begins, "Little children, let us love, not in word or speech, but in truth and action. And by this we will know that we are from the truth, and will reassure our hearts before Him whenever our hearts condemn us. For God is greater than our hearts, and He knows everything. Beloved, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have boldness before God, and we receive from Him whatever we ask, because we obey His commandments and do what pleases Him." Notice here the close association between love and obeying God's commands. Those who are obedient to God's commands are the members of the Johannine community, the community founded by John, and perhaps shared in the Christian community in general, though this is somewhat debatable. The community in this case, the community to which John writes, is one particular, perhaps even peculiar community where membership would have been tightly controlled, tightly drawn. You were either fully in or you were out. This was not likely a community of half-hearted Christians. These were not what some would derisively call today C&E Christians, that is, Christians who show up on Christmas, Easter, and for the occasional baptism of a family member. No, these are the every Sunday, every Wednesday, every prayer meeting Christians, the one for whom the community of the church is their everything. And it's very probable that they would have rejected anyone who wasn't 100% committed. it would have had at least some of the marks we would identify with modern-day cults: insular, disciplined, committed. And they would almost certainly have seemed cult-like to 1st and 2nd century Jews and Gentiles around the Roman Empire. Apparently, one of the issues facing the church was the many different voices in the church making very different claims about what a Christian must believe about, and especially believe about, the resurrection. Remember, this was before there was a New Testament, and before the church had worked through the very many theological issues and questions we now take for granted. Among the things that was up in the air at the time was the resurrection of Jesus. Was it his physical body that was resurrected, or did he simply appear ghost-like to the disciples while his actual body still lay in a tomb somewhere? John, or the John of these letters, addresses this question by writing, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God, and every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. And this is the spirit of the Antichrist, of which you have heard that it is coming, and now it is already in the world. Little children, you are from God and have conquered them, for the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. They are from the world, therefore what they say is from the world, and the world listens to them. We are from God. Whoever knows God listens to us, and whoever is not from God does not listen to us. From this we know the spirit of truth and the spirit of error." You can see from this that John is firmly on the side of what we consider Orthodox Christianity, namely belief that Jesus came in the body and that he was resurrected in the body, and he relegates those who teach something else to being followers of the Antichrist. Keep in mind, this is not how most of the church actually sees things, but this community certainly did. They saw the world in us and them terms. But they're not alone. There are still many Christian communities, even today, who see the church and the world as absolute opposites, black and white. It worked for that community, but not for all. Tomorrow, one of the most beloved passages in the whole Bible about love, second in familiarity only to Paul's words in 1 Corinthians 13. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.